Have we come up with an intro for these yet? Do you just literally pick them up from wherever I start?
Pretty much from wherever you start.
Cool.
When you're just like, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. Like I was saying earlier, I'm just like knackered and hot. I've ordered a little fan just so I can sit in front of me and just get some air, but it doesn't come till tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, Luke has officially kissed goodbye to summer because he's been organised and ordered a fan. That's it. We will never get any heat now.
I
You've
know.
done it.
Yes, it's meant to be raining for the next week anyway, so. But
yeah. Yay.
It's all right.
It's all right. It's all right. Should we tell the good people what we're chatting about today?
Yes. So we are going to be talking about how to train when you're time restricted. So covering some different topics around, obviously, when you've either got a session that you are restricted for time, or it might even be an occurrence where it's in a sense like a regular situation that you're restricted for time, which I think kind of both of those situations there needs to be some differences with, because if it's a one-off, then there's potential to kind of make the rest of the session up at a different point in the week or make adaptations for that. But if it's a regular occurrence, then some of these techniques could be like staples in your training, or some of them might not necessarily be applicable. So those are the two situations. Okay. So would you like to start off with your, how would you recommend to your clients? Just so what to see, I've made a list. One of us was prepared.
What, Luke? I really would have made a list, but I have been busy. I promise. It's not that I'm slacking. Okay, so kind of going off the back of, if you are somebody who just in general doesn't have a lot of time to train, one of the biggest things that is going to help you is a wonderfully handy little function on your iPhone called airplane mode, which stops people being able to message you and stops you being able to lose that. Oh God, where's she going with this? And stops you froze. You were looking at me like I was some form of goddess, not that you wanted to smack me because I've started slightly off topic. No. One of the biggest things is, if you are genuinely short on time and this is just your life, whether it's because of job restrictions, family life, scheduling, whatever it is, one of it doesn't matter what your program is, one of the biggest and best things that's going to help you is going in with no distractions. And it's great if you've got 3 hours to train. You can message your mates back, you can get on Instagram, you can chat to everybody in the gym. But if you are somebody who really does struggle with concentrating genuinely, and I find this, especially if I start getting into like messaging clients back and stuff, just putting your phone on airplane mode can be one of the best things that you can do, because it forces you to focus on what you're doing, what you need to be doing next, how long your rest periods are, and it stops a lot of just the noise that I think can really easily take over your workout. Obviously that's not necessarily a specific function of how to train, but I think it's something we could all benefit from at some point in time, is a little bit less thumb action and a little more actually focusing on your training.
Yeah, that was one of the points I noted down, like removing distractions, and that the phone is one of the big distractions. Also, like one of the things you can do is to stick headphones in, because then people don't really come up to you and talk to you as much, and just a tip for life, to be honest. Even if you're going like when you're walking down the high street and they've got people that hand out leaflets and stuff, and just put my headphones in, even if I'm not listening to anything, just walk down, then just look the other way so they can see the headphones. Can't hear you.
Gaze into the sky. You can see my headphones. That is the universal sign for do not interrupt me. Although some people just don't get it.
No.
In terms of actual ways to kind of manipulate your training. Potentially one of the big things would be, again, this is still on the topic of if you really don't have a lot of time, would be to get the most out of your workouts, probably some form of full body approach over and above like single body part splits will mean that you have a much better chance.
Hold on a second.
Is that the dog that pooped all over the floor? For everybody listening, because obviously this is still recording because we're a super professional podcast, Luke came out of his bedroom the other morning to find that dog, that yappy little terror you just listened to, had pooed all over the landing.
Yeah, and it's not even my dog.
He escaped from timeout. There you go.
Yeah.
But going back to training kind of a full body approach over and above single body part splits just means that you will probably be able to hit those muscle groups more than once across a week if you kind of roll through a bit more. Looks like ignore the dog. Rather than like chest and shoulders or back and biceps, if you go right, okay, well, I'm going to start day one of my training program with my big compound moves for just lower body general, but then I'm going to finish with maybe some shoulders and arms. Cool. Then you might go in day two and you're going to start with your big compound moves for upper body, but you might then taper off into some isolation exercises for the lower body, for example. It means that then if you can do, say, 3 or 4 training days a week, you've got much more chance of being able to hit each muscle group twice per week, which is more optimal for growth than once per week. And it'll probably just help your workouts to flow a little bit better, rather than doing like chest one day, back another day, legs another, and then realizing that actually, oh, that's all I've got time for. And there's still, some accessory stuff that I haven't got time for.
Yeah, I think this is one of the differences between, as I said, those two situations as well. If you've got a one-off session that you're going to be restricted for time with, then you can kind of drop off some of that fluff work, get your main lifts done, and then you may be able to add in the rest of those small little things, whether it's bicep curls, calves, those triceps, those little things that don't really help a lot of people. They're the added extra fun bits, just to add more volume to your arms and sort of grow them. You might be able to tag that on to an end of another session, and get that volume still in with that week, but it's just shortening the session that you've got that time restriction from. But if you are regularly having sort of time restricted sessions, then you're probably going to shift most of your focus to those large compound movements that are hitting more muscle groups and affecting greater growth than some of the light stuff. Same with, in a sense, kind of what exercises you're picking. Like, make your exercise choices effective. Don't just do the stuff that you enjoy or the stuff that you like training, because yes, I'm looking at you, Harriet, because it's likely the fact it's likely that the stuff that you enjoy doing is the stuff that you're good at already, and the stuff that's well developed. So to progress, you're not going to make that much progress on that stuff because it's already well developed. So shift your focus to the stuff that you're not so good at.
Yes, Luke. I shall then. Right. To be fair, as much as I admitted to you this week, I am very guilty of choosing the things I like over and above always the things that are most beneficial. I do always, even if I'm going into the gym with no plan, I do very much focus on compound movements. I'm quite, I guess, quite lucky that my favorites are the big lifts. So all manner of deadlift, leg press, don't mind a little bit of squat action, rows, chest press, etc. It is more for me the biceps and triceps and the little shoulder movements that I do tend to leave out, or anything lunge based.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's fine. Okay.
That leads me into kind of next point though, actually, is where you're applying your focus, you're probably going to want to remove high CNS taxing movements, stuff that, for example, very heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, because your recovery capacity intraset is going to be so much longer. And if you're needing to have 3 to 5 minutes rest between sets, and you've only got like a 45-minute window to train in, your first couple of sets doing those heavy deadlifts is going to take you, after warm-ups, like 20 minutes, and that's half your session already gone. So you're probably going to want to change out exercises to stuff that's less CNS taxing, doesn't have as much recovery needed between sets, but still works the target muscle.
Fab. So I can legitimately take out squats then. Boom.
You're not time restricted, so
I think I might be, you know.
I trained with you the other day.
Okay.
You're not time restricted.
Yeah, but you also broke me. I'm not doing that again. They're loving it because I have such sore triceps right now. So he's enjoying the fact that he thinks he can make me work harder than I can do it myself.
That was an intro week's session.
Oh God, honestly, you men. Okay, so let's talk then. So say somebody is time restricted but really loves a deadlift. Would you ever keep them in but maybe go lighter, notch up the rep range a little bit? So rather than like a super heavy, like, I don't know, 6 to 8 reps, would you consider leaving them in and putting them higher, or would you recommend taking them out altogether?
It kind of got to run like a cost benefit analysis. It's because if someone loves them, then it's more like that. Like, you still want people to enjoy the session. If having the deadlifts in is going to allow them to enjoy the session, still feel like they're making progress and still works towards their goals, then potentially, yes, still leave them in. If it's a sense of, let's say, like someone that's regularly got a time restricted program, I would probably allocate less sets towards the deadlifts, so we're not creating as much fatigue, and probably I wouldn't go very heavy. So yeah, shift like this, the reps slightly lower, maybe even working more submaximally to stay away from that high fatigue area. So you're still having them in for enjoyment, but they're not going to tax the body too much. And then you could potentially look to pair them with something that's not majorly taxing, but I find that still, with large compound movements like deadlifts, I don't really like to pair them or superset them with other movements. It just, the recovery is too long and it impedes it.
Which does lead us very nicely onto another cheeky little tactic to use when programming, because you've just mentioned them, and that is the use of supersets, which, for anybody who's never heard of the term before, basically means doing 2 exercises back to back with pretty much no rest in between other than your transition from whatever it is. So say it's a machine-based move into a dumbbell move. Obviously, you're going to get yourself off the machine, you're going to pick your dumbbells up, a couple of deep breaths, and then basically off you go. There's a couple of ways of achieving a superset. So you can superset the same muscle group. So you could do, for example, leg extensions into lunges, which would be disgusting. You can do opposing muscle groups. So you might go leg extension, which obviously targets the quads, into a leg curl, which targets the hamstrings. Or you can go totally random, can't you? You could do an upper body move and a lower body move. So whilst the lower body's recovering, you can leave it alone and do an upper body move. I think that's kind of all the combinations, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, moving that back to our situations, each of those three different ways is going to be of benefit in different places. If someone is, I say, regularly time restricted, then they're probably going to want to work opposing muscle groups. So like antagonist muscle groups. So if you're working like biceps and their triceps, wow, got to make it out like I'm the clever one here. So
honestly, I don't try and compete with Luke's anatomy and physiology knowledge. I just keep very, very quiet.
It's not even that great. I need to do more, to be honest. But
So much better than mine.
Yeah, if you're working like antagonists, so biceps and triceps, then they're not going to have a direct effect on the fatigue. Whereas if you're working, for example, like a chest press into then tricep extensions, the triceps are already going to be fatigued from the chest press. So that would be like similar muscle groups working. Or if you're doing a chest press into press ups, very similar movement, but it's going to be more fatigued and you're working closer then to failure, almost in a drop set style. That would just have a higher localized muscular fatigue around that specific muscle. Whereas if we're working opposite muscle groups, we're going to get almost the best we can out of the two, the only limiting factor being our kind of energy reserves and how much effort we're putting into each set. And very similar with like an upper lower, if you're doing like for example, a bench press into like lunges or bodyweight squats or something, that will just have an even greater effect on cardiovascular fitness and fatigue, because you're almost forcing the muscle to, your blood into one muscle to then into another, and it's just going to have a higher effect of that fatigue, just almost mentally. So there's kind of different situations that you might want to use them, depending on your.
And if you do write your own program, you write your own programs, don't try and superset things that are nowhere near each other, especially at the moment. I think a lot of like programming for clients in my old gym, they've not moved a lot around, so I can still kind of clock where everything is. But I know a few clients at a few gyms, they obviously, where they've had to strip out some equipment, they tried to like go in and be like, oh yeah, well I'll do like a variation on my last gym program because I really enjoyed it, and then found out like things were nowhere near each other, and they're like trying to run across the gym to two different machines, and it just doesn't really work. So this is where, if you're thinking about how to program for yourself, you can either go like, if it's two machines side by side and you can stick your water bottle on one, for example, and swap it over, that's, you know, not usually the end of the world. Or something that's maybe machine based paired with something that's dumbbell or barbell based, so you can take your equipment over to the fixed piece of machinery, and then obviously complete your superset and then pop it back, making sure it's cleaned, you know, when you're done.
I would typically opt towards that, because it's sod's law as well. If you're using two bits of machines, that someone's going to jump on one of them at the point when you're on the other one, and then you're buggered anyway. So I typically wouldn't do two different machines, just because it's an absolute nightmare. And you've actually stolen another one of my points off my list, and that was to
God, one of us didn't need a list and let's fly.
See, I've tried to be prepared, tried to write things down, and didn't even need to. Yeah, it's kind of just being smart around the gym, and like when you're programming, if you're, for example, if you are training triceps and then biceps, and like your tricep training is like a cable push down, do the biceps on the cable as a curl, because you're then not having to run off to maybe potentially like the other side of the gym to do the next movement, when you can just drop it straight back down and then get in there, because you're going to run across the gym and find that a piece of equipment, the preacher bench you want to use, is in use already, and they've got a couple of sets left, and then you're going to go to find something else, and then your mate's going to stop you and talk to you, and it's just like all those little bits that you can take out and remove. It's just going to make life easier to run through those things. On the note of supersets, there are a couple of other more sort of advanced training techniques that you could use. Harriet, can you name them?
Off the back of supersets?
Yeah, as well as supersets. Other
Oh, as well as drop sets.
drop sets, yes.
We go and drop.
Yeah, all of them.
What?
So yeah, there's more. What can you do with drop sets then? Explain drop sets.
You can also do is it called cluster sets? Is that what they call it? Or rest pauses? So a drop set, the first ever drop set I did was, we were reading up about training, and it was the 620. So you do 6 reps of an exercise. So it's got to be challenging for your 6. I used to do it on things like the leg extension and the hip abduction. So a machine where it's quite easy to flick the weights, like you don't really want to be pulling plates off a machine. I wouldn't necessarily do this on like a squat, for example, but we used to do a 620 drop set. So you do 6 reps heavy, you'd pretty much knacker yourself out, then you drop the weight by probably about 50% and then hammer out 20 reps quite fast. So it's bridging across 2 rep ranges. That used to be quite fun, actually. I mean, hell on earth, but oddly quite fun. The burn when you get like halfway through that 20 used to be insane. But I've also done it before where I've done drop sets. So I might do, oh gosh, I can't remember the rep numbers. I want to say it was somewhere around like the 8 to 10, but like if you have a weight stack, say you're doing, I don't know, leg extensions at 55 kilos, you do your 10 reps, move up a pin, do another X amount of reps, move up another pin. So you might do up to like 5 drops in weights. Obviously you get lighter and lighter and lighter each time, but you're not having any rest in between. So it's just another nifty little way of pulling up volume.
Yeah. On the large scale, I think that's generally more of a fun way of training now and again than something that would really be a staple in your programming.
Week, would you?
No, because it's high fatigue. It's just generating, like I say, a lot of fatigue and a lot of volume in your training without much benefit. You might use it like now and again for fun, or if for a muscle group that you're trying to increase a lot of that blood flow, increase that lactic acid build up for some reason. So if you are in a one-off session that you're restricted for time and you still want to get a good stimulus to that specific muscle, then that might be a situation you use it. But if it's your regular programming is time restricted, I probably wouldn't use something like a drop set, or use it sparingly for a bit of fun, because it's just there's you've got better options. One of them would be a rest pause or cluster set, which, Harriet, I'm gonna test you here.
I quite like that. I know what I'm doing with these are fine. So when you're doing something like a rest pause, you would complete your first set. You can do them like you could do them on your last set only. You could do all of your sets for a particular exercise like that. Like I've often used it on small muscle groups, so like biceps and triceps, which for me works really well because I get really bored doing bicep and tricep work. But for example, say you were doing cable curls, say you were working between a 10 to 20 rep range, you do your first bit somewhere between that 10 to 20 reps, then you take around 5 deep breaths, you'd go to failure, take another 5 deep breaths and go again to failure. So that would be written on my client's program as 2 rest pauses. So your reps might go, I don't know, 15, then you might only get 8 or so on the first rest pause, and you might get 5 on the second. But again, another nice way of getting a little bit of extra volume in, and it doesn't take a lot of time because you're literally stopping to take just 5 deep breaths and then go again. It's really short.
So what's the benefit?
How you do them?
Yeah, pretty much the same. What's the benefit over something like drop sets?
Oh, benefit over, oh god, this is stressful. I mean, well, you're working at the same weight, which has surely got to do some benefit. I'm making this up, people, so don't judge me. I would say, right, my rational head would go, volume wise, you will get more out than if you do 6 at a heavy, 20 at a lighter, for example. I don't know. No.
Yeah.
You tell
me,
Luke.
So
I feel sweating. This is like being in a job interview.
I didn't tell you, but this is actually your performance review. So
oh my god. Is it? Ladies and gentlemen, physique coaching is shortly just gonna have 2 coaches. Anyone want to offer me a job?
Yeah, no, you're on the right track. So you're still utilizing the same way. So you still got the same like muscle fiber recruitment. The theory basically behind it is that for any given set, the first, let's say we're working to 10, the first 5, 6 or so reps are not majorly productive for muscle growth. We're almost kind of fatiguing that muscle to get to the point closer to failure. Whereas then if we break that down, so you do your first set at 10, and then you've got your cluster sets are then going to be 3, 2, 2 or something, for example. Those then following sets, those cluster sets, are inherently pre-fatigued by the first set. So you've almost already done your first 6 or so reps that would be just that build up to those last 3. So you can have the same stimulus of working, for example, like trying to do your normal 4 sets of 10, but reducing that time frame by keeping that pre-fatigued state of the muscle and just working to the proximity failure quicker and closer.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Makes sense?
We said this was going to be educational, didn't we?
Yes, this is our topic-based podcast.
I like it. There you go, and I've learned a little something new. I mean, to be honest, I just thought that they were at fault. How midway did I thought they were just a torture device, to be honest.
Well, most people use them as torture device.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it works because I, for example, would rather do really 2 sets with a drop set. So thinking biceps, I'd rather do my reps, then my 2 rest pauses, and then another one exactly like that, over and above doing like 4 straight sets. Just any day, I find it a lot easier to physically push through. I think as I told you the other day, I find arms really boring.
Yeah.
Which, considering I love training upper in general so much, is probably quite weird. But yeah, for me, I'd rather something like that, and I think it's quite a good way to finish off your workout as well. Like that feeling where you've worked hard and you have, because you've hit your reps in reserve, you've beat the week before, but there's sometimes where there's that part of you that's still a bit like, I feel like I haven't worked hard enough, because it's so much around that burn and that lactic acid. It does give you that kind of sense that I must have worked harder, because that now feels like my arms are going to fall off. As much as it's a psychological thing, I think that's one of the things that it's not the end of the world to want that.
No,
and not take it all the time.
Yeah, it's almost that kind of neurological thought process of I need to push myself harder and feel that burn, feel that ache that I've worked hard to feel like I am progressing. Yeah,
my triceps have got that ache, thank you.
But like I was saying to you the other day, with your programming, you could potentially reduce the set volume of your arms and just introduce something like a cluster set of biceps, and so it's not as time intensive, and it's that more sadistic fun kind of element that you're going to feel like you've done something, but it's still going to be productive for you to some degree. And a lot of training and program design is trying to match that element of efficiency in your training, relevance to your goals, as well as the fun, enjoyment factor that you're actually going to stick to the program and not be bored in the gym just doing like straight sets all the time, because some people it's going to be fine. If someone is very focused on like maximizing hypertrophy for that, what they're trying to do, it doesn't really going to matter to them what they're doing in the gym, because they're just going to be focusing on executing. But some people, believe it or not, don't really like training, so they like to do some different stuff and like to be tested in different ways. So it's matching that fun element to it.
Something I've started doing, I hope I'm not stealing another one of your points, with a couple of my clients where work might have got a little bit busier and they don't want to lose a training day, but they are needing to fit other things in. What I've done with them is I've taken out potentially one or two of their more kind of traditional hypertrophy based strength training programs, and swipped it out. I swapped it. I can't keep using that. Swapped it out for like a timed as many rounds as possible circuit. So kind of taking a little bit of the CrossFit vibe. So still keeping in a lot of the movements that they would have done anyway. It's not that we've changed it and it's burpee central and stuff like that. But they might go, right, okay, well, you've got 15 reps of these 6 exercises to do. You're going to set your timer for 30 minutes and you're going to do as many rounds as possible. And normally it's somewhere between 3 and 5. So it's still really similar to how I might program in the gym, i.e. they might do 3 sets of 15 reps of a squat, 3 sets of 15 reps for a press up. It takes away that distraction as well, because the time is running. And once you've done week 1, you've got numbers to go in and beat, or weights that you can then add in. So although the style is not traditional, it's potentially another slightly more fun way. If somebody has come from a background where they've enjoyed class-based training or enjoyed circuits and things like that, and it normally makes them a bit more sweaty, so it ticks that box of, if I haven't sweated, I haven't had a good workout. And for as much as you can educate somebody that you don't need to sweat to have a good workout, it's the same bit, isn't it? It still doesn't stop you wanting every now and then to feel a bit sweaty. Well, just go and train at the moment. But that's what I've done with a couple of the team, and they've actually really enjoyed it. Although when I suggested it to one as a way of motivating to train, tell me to go shove that idea. So it doesn't work on everyone.
No, but that's exactly the point of matching the knowledge behind hypertrophy based training and practically working with clients. Is you have to fit it to them, their lifestyle, what they're going to enjoy and what their goals are. Yes, it's not going to be as effective as a more traditional set hypertrophy program, but their goal likely is more going to be around fat loss and improving body composition. That's why we opt more for hypertrophy based training, but it's still that kind of more circuit based CrossFit style, similar to class based training, as long as they're still performing everything to a good form and that's safe, not working to failure on snatches and then like doing wall balls and all that stuff that's gonna cause potential breakdown in form and higher risk of injury. They're still going to make progress towards building muscle tissue, developing their physique, as well as their fat loss goals paired with their nutrition. And they're more likely to stick to that because it's going to have an element of fun and, like say, that element of feeling like they're potentially working to do something that's going to meet their goals. So I don't think it's not a bad move at all. And those sessions have also got to be taken into account of the rest of the program. If some of the other sessions are more traditional based, they can have a bit of a mix. And as long as they're recovering and progressing towards their goals, crack on.
Absolutely. And if it's doing something like that or them dropping a day altogether, I think something better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you can get a decent circuit based workout in 20 minutes. like after you had a good warm up, and some of them are brutal. Jesus, pigeon needs to. Thought we were gonna fly in there.
Pigeons and dogs. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the cat hasn't made an appearance, but no, she doesn't want to feature in today's podcast.
Which actually is similar to one of my points, which was actually sort of.
Oh, I took us very off piece there, didn't I?
That was a different point to that I had, but one of them was kind of limiting rest periods through your training, which in essence would be similar to kind of circuit-based training. If you're limiting rest periods between exercises and moving around and changing that, then that's similar. But sometimes obviously you go into the gym and you lose track of what you're doing and you realize you've been resting for like 5 minutes and you're like, oh shit, should probably do something.
No, it never happens to me, Luke. I go in with a plan. I'm a woman with a plan and boxes to tick. Such a liar.
So I'll get training footage of you. Just.
Oh, shush.
I've actually only got one more point to make on here, and it was just focusing on the quality of sets opposed to quantity. And sometimes if I'm in a phase of programming where I'm getting a bit fatigued with higher volume stuff, I will break down, bring my sets back down and just focus on trying to fully execute on those minimal sets or minimal exercises. And that might be, okay, I'm just doing 4 exercises in this session, and they might be, say, like three working sets each or something, but I'm just going to focus on each of those and execute them as well as I can, opposed to trying to add more little exercises in here and there and doing like 20-25 sets a workout that's just seems to go on and on and on. Let's just focus on that quality aspect.
Yeah, I like that. I've done the same, both with myself and other clients. Instead of kind of 7 different exercises, we've gone down to a lot more 5s and 6s. So yes, a little bit of the shoulder volume, arm volume and stuff might have dropped off a little bit, but we're focusing a lot, like very heavily on the compound movement. And I think, especially if you're used to sessions being a little bit longer, like when you shorten them a bit, you're like, oh, this feels good. And I think it holds your attention sometimes a lot more. It's all very well and good to be that person that goes, I just spent 2 hours in the gym. You're not focused for that whole 2 hours. And if your workout starts to drag on, whether because you've talked to somebody too much, you've had to wait for too many different machines, whatever the reason is, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's your fault, you do tend to drop off and you don't give as much effort into the end exercises as you do the beginning ones, which is another reason why I always put your compound movements first. Always.
And put intent into what you're doing, opposed to just, I say, because it's very easy to fall into a habit of going into an exercise and be like, oh, I've got 4 sets of this. And then you almost start to not perform on each of the sets and each of the reps. You start to just fall back into kind of just motion and going through like as you can. I'm doing lateral raises here for some reason, but you just fall into that, just going through the motions and not having intent into the exercise that you're doing and trying to fully contract that muscle, just because you're thinking about getting through the sets, not getting the best out of the sets that you're doing. Cool.
Indeed.
That is my list done. Is there anything else you can think of?
I don't think so. I feel like we've covered everything we spoke about the other day.
Yeah, I think it's the majority of kind of tips that we use. Like, there's never going to be a perfect situation being restricted for time. But at the end of the day, if you're going in and doing something, then that's better than missing the session.
Absolutely. Always.
And if you are like consistently restricted for time, then adapt your programming to that and create a program that is going to fit your time allocations of what you can do. Whether you're restricted, for example, unable to get to a gym, you know, only got so much time there, but you might be able to get home. You could even get some like just some dumbbells or something, do the main of your session at the gym, and then do your arms, your biceps, triceps, lateral raises at home, and just find a workaround that suits you and still gets you results.
Yep. I'd also say on that, I really don't program a lot of core work directly for clients, and every now and then they'll go, why have I got no ab work? Like, I've always done abs at the end of my session. And then they go, but I don't really want my session to be any longer. Can we take something out? My normal answer is no. Do your core work at home if you really want to do it, or add it on to a quote unquote rest day, maybe one where you're just going into the gym to get some steps in. For example, if you are time restricted, the worst thing to do is take volume and time away from your big compound lifts that are working multiple muscle groups, including your core, and try and fit in some sets of ab crunches or hanging leg raises. That's just shouldn't really be a priority if you're in the gym. If that's, you know, if you're time restricted, better to pull your finger out, do them before bed, or, you know, on any other day or at any other time, rather than trying to remove stuff from your gym program. Because normally as coaches, if it's in your gym program, we've put it in there for a reason, so we're very reluctant to take it out.
Your core is going to be active through a lot of other movements, and it's going to get stimulus from that. It's like dropping off sets of your bench press to do some forearm curls because you need to improve your grip strength. It's like, well, improve your grip strength with the other movements you're doing, like do some deadlifts or do some hanging raise, like hangs between sets or something. That it's not going to take time away or take your volume away from the main of your session.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Perfect.
Cool. So should we do a Q&A session next time?
Yes. Q&A. People, give us your questions. Yes, clients of mine, you'll all be getting a prompt to submit your questions, and I want
send your questions to Harriet. She can organise them all.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
Send them. All right. See ya.
See you next time.